I heard you don't have a wife. My daughters would be perfect for you. Those were the first words the old Apache woman said to me. I had lived alone since the war ended, asking nothing from anyone, owing nothing to anyone. But that night when the young woman stepped across my threshold, I knew my peaceful life was finished. Some debts cannot be avoided, and some people should never be abandoned. My name is Jedediah Cantrell. Folks call me Jed. I am 42 years old, and I have carried the weight of two dead men on my shoulders for half a decade. Not ghosts. Worse than ghosts. Memories. I live alone on a small ranch at the edge of San Simon Valley, Arizona territory. The year is 1882. Summer heat bakes the ground hard as iron. Water is scarce. Patience is scarcer. Every morning begins the same way. I rise before the sun touches the hills. First thing I do is check my weapons. Colt 45 revolver, clean and oiled, 24 rounds in my belt. Winchester 73 rifle, 40 rounds in the cabinet. A man who forgets his guns in this territory is a man who does not plan to live long. The ranch is nothing special. One-room house with thick adobe walls, a barn that tilts slightly eastward, a well that still produces water when half the valley has gone dry. That water is the only reason I chose this place. Water means life out here. It also means trouble, though I did not know that yet. I have a few chickens. One horse named Molly, a gray mare with more sense than most people I have met, and a skinny dog named Dust who wandered in 2 winters ago and decided to stay. He is better company than humans. Dogs do not ask questions. My days follow a pattern. Feed the animals. Check the fence line. Repair what needs repairing. Sit on the porch and watch the sky change colors. At night, I lie on my cot and wait for sleep. Sleep comes hard. When it finally arrives, the dreams come with it. Thunder splitting the darkness. Rain hammering down so thick you cannot see your own boots. Two men calling my name, voices raw with fear. My own voice screaming orders that came too late. Then the terrible silence that follows when men stop breathing. I wake up sweating, reaching for something that is not there. In 1877, I led a cattle drive through the Guadalupe Pass during storm season. Bad decision. I knew the risks, but we were behind schedule, and the rancher was paying double for early delivery. I pushed the men forward when I should have waited. The flash flood caught us in a narrow canyon. 2 drovers died. Good men, young men. One had a wife waiting in El Paso. The other had just turned 19. They trusted me to keep them safe. I failed. After that, I sold everything and bought this forgotten piece of land where nobody knew my name or my shame. I figured if I stayed away from people, nobody else would pay for my mistakes. Once a month, I ride 3 hours to the trading post east of here. Not a real town, just a collection of tents and tables where folks exchange goods without paperwork or questions. That particular day, the heat pressed down like a blanket soaked in hot water. Even Molly moved slower than usual. I needed salt for curing meat. Maybe ammunition if the price was fair. Nothing more. The trading post was crowded. Travelers, miners, ranchers, drifters. The smell of sweat and tobacco hung thick in the still air. I tied Molly to a post and walked toward the supply table. That is when I noticed the commotion. 3 men stood in front of an old Apache woman. She was small, her back curved with age, but her eyes held a sharpness that age had not dulled. She wore a faded shawl over her shoulders. Behind her sat a woven basket filled with handmade goods. Rope braided by hand, small wooden carvings, a pair of moccasins, the leather softened by miles of walking. One of the men, a broad-shouldered fellow with a cruel mouth, held a moccasin in a fist. He twisted it back and forth, pretending to examine it. "This ain't worth a nickel," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Indian garbage. I'll give you 3 cents for the whole basket." The old woman did not respond. Her face showed nothing, but I saw her hands trembling beneath the shawl. The men laughed. One of them spat near her feet. I stood there watching. This was not my concern. I had spent years making sure nothing was my concern. but something held me in place. Maybe it was the dignity in her silence. Maybe it was the casual cruelty in theirs. Maybe it was all the times I should have acted and did not. I walked forward. The men did not notice me at first. I stopped beside the old woman close enough that my shadow fell across the basket, close enough to make my presence impossible to ignore. The man with the moccasin looked up. His smile faded when he saw my face. "Something you need, stranger." I did not answer him. I crouched down and picked up the basket. I looked through the contents slowly, then stood and reached into my vest. I pulled out $5 silver and placed them in the old woman's palm without touching her skin. The man's face reddened. "We were negotiating here." "No," I said. "You were stealing." He took a step toward me. His hand moved toward his belt. I did not reach for my gun. I just looked at him. Let him see what was in my eyes. Whatever he saw made him stop. "Let's go," he muttered to his companions. "Place smells like savages anyway." They walked away, throwing dark looks over their shoulders. I set the basket down gently. I did not expect gratitude. I did not want it. But as I turned to leave, the old woman spoke. Her voice was low and rough, like wind scraping across stone. "You are different from them." I paused but did not turn around. "I just don't like watching people get cheated." "No," she said. "It is more than that. I can see it." I walked to Molly, mounted up, and rode home without looking back. What I did not know was that the old woman watched me until I disappeared over the horizon. I did not know that she had come to that trading post specifically to find someone like me. The confrontation with those men was not random. It was a test. And I had passed. 3 days later, I sat on the porch eating supper. Boiled potato, strip of salted beef. The sun hung low, turning the dust to copper and gold. Dust lifted his head. His ears flattened. A low growl rumbled in his throat. I heard it a moment later. Footsteps. More than one person. Moving quietly but not quietly enough. I reached for my pistol and stood. 3 figures emerged from the shadows of the mesquite trees. The old Apache woman walked in front. Behind her came 2 younger women. They stopped at the edge of my porch. I recognized the old woman immediately. Her eyes were just as sharp as before, maybe sharper. The 2 younger women could not have been more different. The one on the left stood tall, almost as tall as me. Strong jaw, restless eyes that scanned everything at once. A warrior's bearing. The other woman hung back slightly. Her head was bowed just enough to avoid direct eye contact. Dark hair pulled into a low braid. Simple dress, clean but worn thin by travel. She was younger, maybe 24. Beautiful in a quiet way that did not demand attention. The old woman spoke without preamble. "You did not steal from me. You did not cheat me. You did what was right." She paused. "I know who you are, Jedediah Cantrell. The man who lives alone. The man with no wife. The man who keeps to himself. How do you know my name?" "I know many things." Her eyes held mine. "I know Solomon Kincaid wants your land. I know he has killed to get what he wants. I know you are the only man in this valley he has not bought or broken." Solomon Kincaid. I had heard the name before. Wealthy rancher. Controlled most of the water rights in the territory. People spoke of him in whispers, never to his face. "What does that have to do with you?" I asked. The old woman gestured toward the younger women. "These are my daughters, Chenoa and Ayana." She pointed to the tall one first, then the quiet one. "One of them will stay here tonight. There is no bargain, no promise. My older daughter and I will leave before sunrise." I stared at her. "I don't understand." "You will." She turned toward the darkness, then paused. Her next words were spoken over her shoulder. "My older daughter has been watching you for 2 days. She will continue to watch from the hills. If you harm her sister, she will know, and she never misses." The tall one, Chenoa, gave me a long look, not threatening exactly, just making sure I understood. Then she followed her mother into the shadows. The younger woman remained, Ayana. She stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of her, waiting. I looked at her for a long moment. She looked back. Her eyes were dark and deep, holding secrets I could not begin to guess. "Are you hungry?" I finally asked. She nodded once. I stepped aside and opened the door wider. That is how Ayana came into my life. Part 2, Shadows and Truth. The days that followed moved like cold molasses. Ayana and I shared the small house without sharing words. She slept by the fireplace. I sat in the chair by the door pistol across my lap. Neither of us slept well, but she did not sit idle. The first morning I woke to find the porch swept clean. She had used a bundle of dry sage branches tied tight with cord. The second morning she replaced the worn rope on the well bucket with a new knot that would hold twice as long. By the third day she followed me out to repair the fence line without being asked. When I drove posts into the ground, she handed me tools before I could reach for them. When the wire needed stretching, she held it steady. Her hands knew work. Her movements were precise and careful, nothing wasted. I noticed other things too. She always positioned herself to face the door. She kept a knife within arm's reach when she slept. She drew faint marks in the dirt behind the house lines pointing in different directions. "What are those for?" I asked her one evening. "To know which way someone approaches by how the dust moves." She was not just hiding. She was preparing for something or someone. On the sixth morning, dust rose on the horizon. One rider, coming slow. Ayana saw it the same moment I did. Without a word, she moved toward the back of the house and vanished behind the corner. I walked to the porch and waited. My rifle leaned against the doorframe. I did not pick it up. Not yet. The rider stopped 30 yards out. He did not dismount. The horse was healthy and well-groomed, better cared for than most animals in this territory. The man wore a leather vest and trail-dusted pants. His face was lean and clean-shaven, too neat for a drifter. The silver buckle on his belt caught the sunlight. He smiled, the kind of smile that never reaches the eyes. "Afternoon," he said. "Looking for a woman, young, Apache, might be traveling with an old lady. Seen anyone like that around here?" I leaned against the porch rail. "Lots of people pass through. I don't keep records." "Don't need records." His smile held. "Just a direction. Can help you." His eyes moved across the property. They stopped on the woman's dress hanging on the clothesline, on the pair of moccasins sitting by the door. "Nice quiet place you got here," he said. "Man like you probably values his quiet." "I do. Be a shame if something disturbed it." I straightened up. "Is that a threat?" "Just an observation." He turned his horse. "I'll be seeing you, friend." He rode away without looking back. When the dust settled, Ayana emerged from behind the house. Her face was pale, but her jaw was set hard. "He works for Solomon Kincaid," she said. "How do you know?" "I've seen him before. 2 years ago, when Solomon came to our camp offering food and shelter." She paused. "Right after my father died." Something cold settled in my stomach. "Tell me everything." That night we sat by the fire while Ayana told me her story. 2 years ago, winter came down hard on the territory, the worst anyone could remember. Game vanished. Water froze solid. Her family's small band had nothing left. Her father had died the year before. A riding accident, they said. His horse spooked and threw him against the rocks. Solomon Kincaid appeared with wagons full of supplies. Food, blankets, medicine. He offered everything they needed to survive. The price was simple: Ayana. "My mother agreed," she said quietly. "She promised me to him as a wife in exchange for saving us through the winter." I watched the flames dance. "And you ran." "Not at first. I tried to honor my mother's word." Her voice went flat. "Then I learned what kind of man Solomon truly is. He does not want a wife. He wants a possession, something to own and control. There's more I said, "It was not a question." She looked at me. In the firelight, her eyes glistened. My father knew something. A location, silver, a hidden vein that white men have searched for since before I was born. Sacred ground to my people. She took a breath. Before he died, he told me where it was. Made me swear never to reveal it to anyone. Solomon knows about the silver. He suspects. He believes my father shared the secret with me before his death. That is why he really wants me. Not as a wife, as a map to wealth beyond counting. I sat with that for a long moment. Your father's death, I said slowly. You don't believe it was an accident. Ayana's hands curled into fists. My father could ride better than any man alive. He rode through thunderstorms, through floods, through places where one wrong step meant death. He never fell. You think Solomon had him killed. I think Solomon creates problems so he can offer solutions. I think my father's death was arranged to leave us desperate, to leave us with no choice but to accept his help. Her voice hardened. And I think the man who visited today knows exactly how my father died. The next morning I wrote into Bowie. I needed information. There was only one man I trusted to give it straight. Harlan Briggs ran the general store on the main street. We had known each other since the cattle drive days. In '71, we crossed the Staked Plains together and nearly died of thirst before finding water. That kind of experience bonds men together. He was behind the counter when I walked in. 58 years old, white hair, a face carved with deep lines from decades of hard sun. He looked up and his eyebrows rose. Jed Cantrell, twice in 1 month. World must be ending. I need to talk. Private. His expression changed. He nodded toward the back room. I closed the door behind us and told him everything. The old woman, Ayana, the writer asking questions, Solomon Kincaid. Harlan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he let out a long breath. You stepped in something deep this time, Jed. Tell me about Kincaid. Solomon Kincaid is the most powerful man in this valley, maybe the whole territory, owns 3 ranches, controls water rights to half the settlements around here. Men who cross him tend to have accidents. He paused. Terrible luck some folks have. How many guns does he have? 4 or 5 hired men. Maybe more. The one who leads them is named Ezekiel Darrow. Goes by Zeke. Harlan's face darkened. Former Confederate soldier. They say he has a talent for making problems disappear. What else do you know about Darrow? Harlan walked to a shelf and pulled down an old tin box. Inside were papers, photographs, letters. He rifled through until he found what he was looking for. A photograph, faded and worn. A group of soldiers standing in front of a tent. One face was circled in pencil. That's Darrow, Harlan said. Pictures from the war. Chickamauga, 1863. I looked at the face. Thin, hard, eyes like chips of granite. There's something else, Harlan continued. About 3 years back, an Apache man died near here. Said he fell from his horse, but some folks saw Zeke Darrow in that area the day before. He met my eyes. The dead man's name was Running Wolf. He was an Ashota's husband, father to her daughters. Everything clicked into place. Solomon had not just taken advantage of a tragedy. He had created it. He murdered Ayana's father to make the family desperate, then stepped in as their savior to claim what he wanted, the silver and Ayana. Does the girl know? Harlan asked. She suspects. She doesn't have proof. Will that matter to her? I thought about the fire I had seen in Ayana's eyes, the cold determination in her voice. No, I said. It won't. I rode back as the sun was setting. The sky blazed red and orange like the whole world was on fire. Ayana was waiting on the porch. The carbine lay across her lap. She had not slept. I could see it in the shadows under her eyes. I dismounted and tied Molly to the post. Then I climbed the steps and sat down beside her. I learned some things, I said. She looked at me and waited. Your father didn't fall from his horse. Zeke Darrow killed him, on Solomon's orders. For a long moment she did not move, did not breathe. Then something shifted in her face. The uncertainty that had lingered there since she arrived was gone. In its place was something harder, colder. I knew, she whispered. In my heart, I always knew. What do you want to do? She stood up. The carbine hung at her side. I want them to pay. Solomon, Darrow, all of them. That's not a plan. That's a death wish. Solomon has 5 armed men, maybe more. Then I'll take as many as I can before they kill me. I stood and blocked the door. Or, I said quietly, you could let me help. We do this smart. We do this together. And when it's over, you walk away alive. She studied my face, looking for something. I do not know if she found it. Why? She asked. You don't owe me anything. I've spent a long time running from my mistakes, hiding from responsibility because I was afraid of failing again. I held her gaze. I'm done running. I'm done standing by while good people suffer. The silence stretched between us. Finally, she nodded. Together then. Part 3. The Reckoning. We had 2 days, maybe 3. That was my estimate before Solomon lost patience and sent his men in force. I spent those days preparing. First the defenses. I strung wire between the mesquite trees on 3 approaches, hanging tin cans that would rattle at the slightest touch. Any rider coming through at night would announce himself whether he wanted to or not. I identified shooting positions. The porch offered decent cover with a clear view of the yard. The barn roof gave elevation but limited escape routes. The back corner of the house protected the flank. I filled buckets with water and placed them near the buildings. Fire was an easy weapon for attackers. I wanted to be ready. Ayana proved herself useful. She could shoot 40 yards with the carbine hitting a tin can 3 times out of 5. Not perfect. Good enough. More importantly, she kept calm under pressure. No wasted motion, no panic. Whatever else she was not afraid. The night before they came, we sat on the porch. Stars scattered across the black sky like salt spilled on dark cloth. The air smelled of sage and dust and something else. Something electric, like the feeling before a thunderstorm. You never told me, Ayana said, why you live out here alone. I was quiet for a while. In '77, I led a cattle drive through Guadalupe Pass during storm season. We got caught in a flash flood. 2 men died. I stared at my hands. They trusted me to keep them safe. I made a bad call. They paid for it. So you came here to punish yourself. I came here to make sure I couldn't hurt anyone else. She considered that. And now I have a chance to do something right. I'm not going to waste it. She did not reply, but she reached out and touched my arm, just for a moment, then pulled away. It was not a promise, not a declaration, just an acknowledgement. We were in this fight together. They came at dawn on the 3rd day. Dust rose on the horizon like a brown cloud. 5 riders, moving in formation. Ayana climbed to the barn roof with the carbine. I positioned myself on the porch, rifle in hand, pistol holstered at my hip. Dust crouched under the steps, growling softly. They stopped 40 yards out. Zeke Darrow dismounted first. He was exactly as the photograph showed. Tall, thin, face like sun-dried leather. Eyes that held nothing human. Behind him, 4 men spread out in a loose semicircle. All armed, all watching. Jedediah Cantrell, Zeke called out. We've come for the woman. Hand her over and we'll leave you in peace. I stepped down from the porch. 1 step, 2. My hands hung loose at my sides. No. Zeke tilted his head. That's not smart, friend. There's 5 of us. 1 of you. I can count. Then you know how this ends. I know how you want it to end. I took another step forward. But I also know what you did 3 years ago. To a man named Running Wolf. Something flickered in Zeke's eyes. Just for a second. Don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. I think Solomon Kincaid paid you to kill him. Make it look like an accident. Then Solomon could swoop in like a savior and claim the dead man's daughter for himself. Zeke's jaw tightened. You talk too much. And you killed a good man. For money. For your master's greed. One of Zeke's men shifted nervously in his saddle. His hand crept toward his gun. That is when the first shot rang out. Not from me. Not from Zeke. From the hills to the east. The nervous gunman jerked backward. Blood bloomed across his chest. He fell from his horse without a sound. Everyone froze. I looked toward the ridge. A figure rose from behind a boulder. A woman holding a Winchester rifle. Smoke curled from the barrel. Chenoa. She had been watching, just like her mother said she would. 4 against 3 now, I said. Still like your odds. Zeke's face twisted with rage. Kill them. Everything happened at once. I dove to my left as bullets tore through the air where I had been standing. I hit the ground rolling and came up firing. My first shot took a gunman in the shoulder. He screamed and dropped his weapon. From the barn roof, Ayana opened fire. Her first shot missed. Her second caught a rider in the leg. His horse reared, throwing him into the dust. Chenoa's rifle cracked again from the ridge. Another man fell. That left Zeke. He had taken cover behind the water trough. Bullets sparked off the metal edge as I fired toward him. Darrow, I shouted. It's over, your men are down. Then I'll finish this myself. He rose and charged toward the barn, pistol blazing. He was going for Ayana. I ran to intercept, but I was too far away. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then Ayana stood up on the barn roof. Stood up in full view, making herself a target. Darrow, she screamed. Look at me. He skidded to a stop. Looked up. Ayana's carbine was aimed directly at his face. You killed my father, she said. Her voice carried across the yard, clear and cold. You took everything from us. For money. For Solomon's greed. Zeke's pistol came up. Ayana fired first. The bullet caught him in the chest. He staggered backward. The pistol fell from his fingers, but he did not go down. He fumbled for a backup weapon at his ankle. I raised my rifle, ready to end it, but I stopped. This was not my kill to take. Ayana climbed down from the barn roof. She walked across the yard toward Zeke, who had fallen to his knees. Blood soaked his shirt. His breath came in wet gas. She stopped in front of him. The morning sun cast her shadow across his body. My father was a good man, she said quietly. He deserved better than you. Zeke tried to speak. Blood bubbled on his lips. Ayana raised her pistol and pulled the trigger. The shot echoed across the valley. Then silence. She stood over him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked toward the house. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were dry. Solomon Kincaid was arrested 2 weeks later. He tried to flee to New Mexico when word spread about what happened at my ranch. Harlan Briggs organized a group of townsmen who caught him at the territorial border. The marshal charged him with conspiracy to commit murder. 3 witnesses came forward with stories about people who had disappeared or died after crossing Solomon. The evidence was overwhelming. He would spend the rest of his life in prison, maybe swing from a rope if the jury felt generous. Chenoa stayed with us for 3 days after the fight. She helped repair the damage to the barn. She hunted game to replenish our supplies. She spoke little, but when she did, her words carried weight. On the morning she left, she stood by her horse and looked at her sister. Mother wants to know if you're coming home. Ayana glanced toward me. I was mending a broken harness near the barn, pretending not to listen. Not yet, she said. Chenoa nodded slowly. He seems like a good man. He is. Mother said you would know when you found the right place to stay. Chenoa mounted her horse. I think you found it. She rode away toward the rising sun. A month passed. The ranch returned to its quiet rhythm. But everything was different now. There were curtains in the windows. The garden had doubled in size. Two cups sat by the stove instead of one. Ayana's beaded necklace hung on a nail beside the door next to my hunting knife. Two things from two different worlds hanging side by side. One evening we sat on the porch watching the sun go down. Dust lay between us, snoring gently. The sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue. "You could leave any time," I said. "There's nothing holding you here." Ayana did not look at me. "I know." Silence. "But I'm not staying because I owe you something," she continued. "I'm staying because I choose to stay. Because this place is mine now, too." I thought about that, about what it meant to share a home after years of solitude, about what it meant to let someone in after building walls to keep everyone out. "I'm glad you stayed," I said finally. She turned to look at me. Something softened in her eyes. "So am I." We sat there as the stars came out. Two people who had found something unexpected in each other. Not quite love, not yet. Something deeper, something harder to name. Trust built in blood and fire. Respect earned through shared danger. A partnership that had proven itself when it mattered most. I had spent years believing that isolation was the only way to protect myself and others from my failures. I was wrong. Living alone is not redemption. It is just another way of running. True redemption comes from standing up when it matters, from protecting what deserves protection, from refusing to fail when people are counting on you. I looked at the woman beside me, at the home we were building together. For the first time in many years, tomorrow did not feel like something to dread. But peace rarely lasts. 2 months later, a letter arrived from Harlan Briggs. A stranger had come to Bowie asking questions. A woman, well-dressed, Eastern accent. She wanted to know about the man in San Simon Valley, the one who killed Ezekiel Darrow. She did not say why she wanted to know. She did not leave a name. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it in my pocket. Ayana saw my face change. "What is it?" "Maybe nothing." I looked toward the horizon, toward the distant hills where unseen eyes might be watching. "Maybe trouble." She stood up and retrieved her carbine from inside the house. "Then we'll be ready," she said. I nodded slowly. The past has a way of following you. No matter how far you run, no matter how well you hide, sooner or later it catches up. But this time I would not face it alone. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales from the Old West.